Oh my goodness, I am so excited about week 3 of the Sewing Bee and I cannot wait to share this week's plans with you. Hi and welcome to this week's video. I'm in the middle of a series of videos all about recreating one of the challenges that is in each week of the Great British Sewing Bee. It is season 10, episode 3 this week, and it was all about holiday makes. Now, what I thought would be an extra challenge for myself was, when sharing pattern inspiration with you for this week's episode, to make all of those patterns free patterns. This week's bee seemed to have a bit of a frugal feel to it. The contestants used tablecloths in the first challenge. They had to use all kinds of nautical leftovers for the second challenge, so I thought it would be fun to challenge myself and see how many of these patterns I can share with you that were free patterns. So if you want to find out more about the patterns that I'm sharing today, do check out the description box below where I'll share links to all of these free patterns. So challenge 1, as usual, was the pattern challenge, and this one was so exciting. I loved seeing all of the vintage tablecloths that they laid out for the contestants, and they had to use these vintage tablecloths to make a blouse. Now, it was quite a simple blouse. It looked like a zero waist pattern. It had a bodice that had a seam line across the front and the back. It had a V-neck, sort of finished about hip height, and then it had sort of sleeves made from a rectangle, so they were slightly ruffly sleeves. Now, in terms of free patterns, I thought the Peppermint Magazine ruffle top was the closest to this. It is a free pattern, although you can pay what you want if you want to support Peppermint Magazine. Now, this one has a V-neck. It is quite a boxy fit, which would be great for getting as much out of your tablecloth or your fabric as you wanted to. Then it has a dropped sleeve and then a ruffle at the bottom of that sleeve. Now, that was the closest that I could find, but there are a lot of free top patterns out there, so do go and have a look at the Peppermint Magazine website. And the other great place to look is the fabric store, and they have a fantastic boxy top, which is what it says on the tin. It has a rounded neckline and then boxy sleeves, and again sort of that straight fit through the waist and hip. So another great top pattern if you wanted to recreate the look from this week's Sewing Bee. Now, the second challenge is the transformation challenge, and this week they were given nautical paraphernalia to turn into a bag, and they had to use ropes as a feature on the bag. There were so many cute bags. I particularly loved Alex's duck bag, or duck sack as she called it, but I thought another great pattern that I've seen is the Helen's Closet Costa tote. Now, this doesn't use rope, so don't worry. It is a simple tote bag, but so perfect for using up fabric scraps that you've got in your sewing room, and it's a super free pattern. It would also pack down nice and small to go in your suitcase if you are going on holiday. I always find it's helpful to have a spare tote bag lying around, so this would be a fab pattern to make up if you wanted a free tote bag for yourself. Now, the third challenge is my favorite. It's always my favorite. I love seeing what they come up with, and this week's theme was the French Riviera, any garment suitable for wearing during the daytime on the French Riviera. I'd love to say I've been to the French Riviera. I haven't, but seeing all of the garments has totally inspired me, and now that's definitely on my list of places that I'd love to go, perhaps wearing some of these garments. The contestants had 4 hours to make an outfit for the French Riviera, and my favourites were definitely Elsa's trousers. They looked incredible. They were pleated trousers across the front, and the pleats went right around to the back. Incredible pockets. Patrick and Esme both wanted a pair. The other contestants wanted pairs. I want a pair. And so I went looking for a pattern straight away, and on the Mood website I found their Asta pants or trousers. Now, these are great wide leg sort of palazzo style trousers, and they do have those pleats across the front. Definitely not as many as Elsa's trousers had. Those were stunning. But if you wanted to recreate the look with a free pattern, this one would be perfect. Now, the other trousers that I absolutely loved were the ones that Pasha sewed up. She sewed a sailor style trousers with gorgeous buttons down the front. And I did find a free pattern for this. They are called the Ellen trousers, and you can find them on the Sew Mag website. Unfortunately, these have a more limited size range, but they would be perfect if you wanted to sew yourself a pair of sailor style trousers for a holiday on the French Riviera or a nice sunny day in the garden. The other pattern that I loved as part of the Made to Measure was Marcus's choice of pattern. He made the most stunning skirt with a really cute top, and I thought the Frankie wrap skirt would be a perfect one to recreate that skirt. Perfect and swishy for the summer. It's one I've looked at for a long time actually, but have not yet made. So that would be such a gorgeous piece to sew up for your summer wardrobe or for holiday hijinks on the French Riviera. Now, for the fun part, what am I going to be making this week? Now, I have the perfect piece of fabric, and I'll show it to you. It's this tablecloth here. It has the most gorgeous blue and yellow flowers embroidered on it, and my mother-in-law actually gave me this. She wasn't using it and she thought I might like to sew something with it, so I have been given permission by the person who gave me the fabric to cut it up and make it into something else. It's quite small actually. It's only about 1 meter square, just over 1 meter square, so I don't even have a table that I could use this on. It did come with 4 napkins as well, so I have a little bit of extra fabric to play with for recreating a blouse. Now, because it is only 1 meter square, I'm not going to get a big V-necked ruffle sleeve top out of it. I'm just not. It's way too small for that. And I want to make the most of this embroidery without cutting it up if I can avoid it. Obviously I'm going to have to cut some of it because I'm not going to be able to use all of that. But what I thought I could do is make sort of a shell top, and the Poppy top by the fabric store is a beautiful linen top, very simple, round neckline, nice small sort of sleeves, and finishes at your high hip, which I thought would be perfect for this. It is for linen, and this is kind of like a cotton linen type feel fabric, so it could be perfect for that. Now, the only thing is, if you want to sew that for yourself, I have seen some reviews that said the arm size is a little tight. So some people have suggested grading out to the next size up from the one you're sewing to get a better fit around the armhole. So that could be an option for this fabric. The other pattern that I saw that I've again wanted to try for a really long time is the Etty camisole by Cami Handmade. Again, another free pattern. That is a beautiful camisole pattern, and it's got a scalloped edge around the neckline. Now, you know how much I love a scallop. I really enjoyed sewing those 2 weeks ago when I did a day dress, and so I thought that could be beautiful in this fabric. And because it's a camisole, it doesn't use a huge amount of fabric, so I could get it out of this tablecloth. Now what I'm thinking is cutting the front out of this and then using some of the remnants from here for the straps. I would love to use the edging in my make if I can, because it's just so beautiful and it took someone such a lot of time to do. Now, having said that, these napkins all have that crocheted edge around them. So what I've started doing this morning in the garden, in the sunshine, because we had some this morning, so I made the most of it, is I've actually been hand sewing these together, because what I'd like to do is to hand sew the 4 of those together. You can see I've just started pinning these ones and sewing those. I'd like to sew them together into sort of a big square like this that I can hopefully use for the back of the camisole. I'm using a very fine needle and lots of stitches to hold those crocheted edges together, but I think that will be perfect. So there's a little bit more work to do on that to just get those 4 panels sewn together, and then I can start cutting out my pattern pieces. So that's the plan. Am I going to do it in 2.5 hours this week? Absolutely not. It's going to take me 2.5 hours probably just to get these napkins sewn together. So I'm not going to time myself this week because I don't have a whole piece of fabric to work from. I have little bits of fabric that I need to put together before I even start. Just in case you're interested, before I dash off, this is the Q dress by Nina Lee in a rifle paper viscose fabric. I absolutely love this pattern. I did add ruffles to the sleeves just for a bit more coverage, and because the original pattern comes with cold shoulders, which I don't like. I think they are annoying. I just keep pulling them up, so I added little ruffles instead, and I love this. It's the perfect easy breezy dress for a warm summer's day, and if it gets a bit cooler later, I often layer it up with my juniper cardigan, which is a nice bright red cardigan. Perfect, nice bright colours for a warm day. Good morning. I am up in the sewing room. It is the next day. I have cut out all the pieces. I did manage to sew those 4 napkins together, and I still didn't have quite enough, so you'll see here are the 4 napkins. Hopefully they'll sit all right when they're finished, but because it is a vintage fabric they don't quite sit flush, but I think as I wash and wear it it'll be fine. I had to add little panels down here on the side of the napkins to make that the right width to cut the back, and I got the front out of the main part of the tablecloth, so there's the front there, and I managed to get everything else cut out as well. The back facing I had to cut in 2 pieces, but again fine, it's on the inside, and I used the crocheted edging as the hem of that piece, so I won't need to hem that, so that's great as well. And then for the straps, I'm really pleased with these. I cut out 2 narrow straps like this, and what I will just do is fold the raw edge in twice and hem that so that I've got the straps the right width, and I've got this little scalloped detail on the straps. I'm hoping those will work out too. So I'm really thrilled. I've got scraps, literally scraps left of the original tablecloths and napkins, so nothing can go wrong from here on in, because if it does I just won't have a top because there's nothing left to play with. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get this sewn up today. It's not too difficult. You start by doing the straps and then putting the scallops on the front, and then you just attach the front and the back with the facing, so it should be quite a quick sew. I think probably the hardest part was putting those 4 napkins together and hand sewing that, and then working out how to cut up all the pieces, which I think they said on the sewing bee too. Actually they did talk about that part of the process taking the most time. It should all be plain sailing from here, right? I think I'm a little bit in love. Oh my goodness, it looks so cute. I'm so excited. Here it is. They turned out so perfectly. I have found top tip for scallops is reducing your stitch length by quite some margin. Now on the rainbow dress, when I was doing loads of scallops, I only reduced the stitch length when I was coming in and out of each curve, otherwise it was on about a 2.5 stitch length. But when I get to the curve I reduce it to about a 1.5, maybe a 1.2, depending on how tight the curve is. I just found that made turning them out a lot neater, and you get a really nice sharp crisp point on the inside of your scallop. For this I just sewed the whole of this front section at 1.5 because it was easier than changing stitch length, and there are only 6 scallops, so that's fine. I also love these straps. They went in beautifully with the crochet edging, and I think they're going to look so lovely. I'm thrilled. Thrilled! I did have to be careful when I cut out this pattern. I mean, I guess they're pointing to a certain area, but they're not on my boobs, so I don't have tablecloth flowery parts in the wrong place on the top, so I'm really happy with the placement of that as well. And that did not take long at all. I think it probably helped that I did some scallops a couple of weeks ago, so I kind of had an idea of what I was doing, and the straps went in quite easily too, which doesn't always happen. So fantastic. Now I'm going to put the facing on the back and sew the straps into that, and then we can whip up the side seams and we're done. I might even be done before lunch. So I think the sewing bees had 2.5 hours to make their tablecloth top. Now granted, they had sleeves to put in and they had a 2-part bodice and back, so there was a lot more sewing for them, but yeah, I think the longest part definitely has been the cutting out, not the sewing up of this particular top. But such a fun sew and a great pattern, excellent instructions. I haven't actually made a Cami handmade pattern before, but I would definitely recommend it, and for a free pattern I think it's superb. The instructions are so clear, a really lovely easy one to sew, and there's a YouTube tutorial, which for those of us who are visual learners is so helpful. Again, lovely and clear. The only thing I'd say is it's sewn up on a black fabric, but she has done another tutorial more recently that's on a white fabric, which is slightly easier to see, so I'll link that in the description box below. Can definitely recommend it. Great pattern so far. Let's see if I can get the back put together now before lunchtime. Guess what? I finished it. Here it is. I love it. Now I did add some of the edging around the front here as a hem, just so that it matched the back, which is here. I really love how this turned out with the 4 little embroidered motifs at the top of the back piece, and on the inside for the facing you'll see that I have left the edging on that too, so it looks really pretty on the inside as well as on the outside. And I have to say, the fit is great. I'm really pleased. It sits nicely across the bust. It's not too low. It's quite nice actually, and the straps sit in a really nice place, and the back covers my bra perfectly. It sits really nicely across my back as well. I think the only thing I would say is that it is still quite stiff, the fabric. It sits fine and it looks really nice over my black Sylvie skirt, and it will look great with jeans too. I think it will loosen up and soften a little bit over time with washing and wearing, although I'll obviously be very careful washing it because I don't want this embroidery to come out. I really love the colour as well. I don't normally wear this colour, but I'm really glad that I made this up into a top because it will get worn. I think there's been a lot of chat this week on Instagram about whether or not we should be repurposing these table linens. I mean, we don't use tablecloths anymore here at home. I love the idea of a tablecloth, but I don't love the idea of washing it after every single meal because my children are still little, and wiping the table down is a whole lot easier than washing table linens after every meal. So definitely in our house, tablecloths don't get nearly as much use as they might do in a few years' time perhaps. Only for special occasions do we get them out. And let's be honest, this beautiful embroidery deserves to be seen more often than for special occasions once every so often. I'm really glad to have this into a garment, out of the cupboard, and it will be worn a lot, I think, over the summer months. It's such a lovely breezy pattern. And in terms of the pattern, will I make it again? Absolutely. Like I said, the fit is fantastic. I love the subtle A-line shape of the pattern. I did put in this little panel here on the side so that the back would be the right size. I probably didn't need to do that actually. I probably got enough wiggle room that I could have left that out, but I'm quite happy to have that extra bit of width over my hips, and it sits beautifully. The fit is great, spot on in terms of the finished garment measurements in the pattern. So highly recommend this free pattern by Cami Handmade. It was a joy to sew, quick and easy with fab instructions. I will definitely be making it again. I have made other camisole patterns in the past. There are a couple of very well-known ones in the sewing community, but I just haven't worn them as much as I thought I would because the fit isn't quite what I would like. But this one, I love it. Perfect. Will make again. Can recommend. I have nothing else to add. What a joyful couple of days of sewing I have had. So happy to have this made up, and thanks to the Sewing Bee for providing yet again another week of fantastic inspiration. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's Sew the Bee with me episode. Pop a comment below. Would you cut up a tablecloth to make a garment, or would you not? And have you made a blouse pattern before from a tablecloth? Do share if you have. I'd love to know what pattern you used. And if you sew up any of the free patterns I've recommended in this episode, let me know as well. I'd love to hear how you got on with them. That's it from me for this week. I hope you'll join me again in next week's video, and until then, I hope you have a lovely week ahead full of lots of happy sewing, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye!